I mean, he's like a runaway buffalo, isn't he? You don't stop him from that distance. Here he comes, sniping away, the baby-faced assassin. Again.
Nakarawa! Samoa, there's that grubber again. Here we go. Nene Williams lost it back. The Priya. Here we go.
Mr. Macaulay, episode 10, mate.
I know.
Double digits.
Double
How about
digits,
that?
mate. I know. Lest we forget and all that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's been a very enjoyable 9 episodes, now 10 episodes. So looking forward to everything that's coming at us this week and what's happened over the last week. But mate, I know that you've had a very busy week and weekend. So give us an update on what's been crack-a-lacking, mate.
Oh, just we had no rugby, which is great, but we were down watching some of the internationals. I definitely returned the pint of Guinness that I owed you.
You did, thank you.
That was,
I got a couple of Guinnesses that morning.
That is debt taken care of. Don't like losing, but we'll see. And then busy weekend. We celebrated. We had our baby shower on the weekend, so it was very, very lucky to have lots of close friends and family that spoiled my wife and I, to be perfectly fair. So we had a really good one.
I heard you tucked yourself into bed fairly early.
Yeah, I mean Saturday night disappeared and Sunday morning came up real quickly.
That's what I meant, early Sunday morning.
Yeah, that 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m. slot seems to be something of the past, but I definitely visited it on Sunday morning before the Scotland game. So
thank you, Dazza and Jay.
I know Daz and Jay gave me they cracked out the Scotch, a nice sprightly 2:30 in the morning. So that was well appreciated of the young the young South African and Kiwi to keep me indulged for a while.
Yeah.
So I think that was a merit to the next day. I think we both lost the drinking battle, but obviously we had to have someone win on the field. So pretty busy weekend, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate.
How you were relatively busy as well, Mr. Elvy?
Yeah, I was a little bit busy, mate. I mean, it was wonderful being able to stop in, albeit very briefly at the Huggies and Chuggies event, mate. But good to catch up with you and the family, and looking forward to the excitement of, is it a boy? Is it a girl? So not long to go now, mate. But yeah, it was the beautiful Beck. It was Beck's birthday weekend. So we had Beck had a joint birthday with one of her soccer friends, Marnie. So we had a number of really good friends on Saturday night, and as you indicated, mate, a couple of early morning Guinnesses on Saturday and Sunday morning for some international rugby that we will get on to very swiftly here with a bit of the international wrap up, mate. But
21 again, right, Jess? 21 again.
21 again.
21 and a half. That's my auntie's favourite. She used to say 21 and change.
There you go.
And I'd always wonder how much change there was, because it was definitely not close to 21 at that point. Anyway,
that's
we
right.
diverge.
But let's make sure we give a shout out. It's November 11 here. It's Remembrance Day. I know that you and I we had separate functions this morning. Paying our respects to all the old diggers and people who have obviously made the ultimate sacrifice, or current first responders and people involved in the various defence forces. So huge shout out to all of those special humans.
Yeah, definitely. Great service this morning. One thing that blew my mind from our service was there are no living First World War veterans left in the world.
No. Well, I mean, it was 110 years ago, right? So, and they were already at least 17 or maybe 16 years old. So, God bless them. But no, it was a wonderful service. I go to the military museum on Crowchild Trail there, and that's always a fantastic event. And had the jets flying overhead, which added a bit of flavour to it, mate.
Yeah, we were lucky enough. We were just across the road in the Killarney Legion, where my wife's mum and her boyfriend are members.
There you go.
And we heard the flyover as well. small, intimate service type idea at the Legion, but definitely a lot of local legends in the sense of guys that have served their country in multiple facets, to allow us who have not served, in a sense, to live in a free world. So
that's right, mate. That's right. We are very fortunate. All right, let's. Before we go around the grounds, mate, what are you representing there? I can see another Scottish jersey, big fella.
I thought it was time to don the colours of young Scotland. First time on the podcast.
Yeah, Autumn Nation series is well upon us, mate.
Yeah, very proud of the boys at the weekend there. It was a tough slog for them, but we watched some incredible rugby, so pretty proud to be a Scotsman and a Canadian at the same time. But today we're donning the Scotland jersey all the way from the World Cup. I don't know if you can see the badge, but it's from the last World Cup. So pretty good little sentiment now.
And it fits well, mate. Just all the people not watching in, it does fit very well.
It's a little snug in areas, but that's okay. Everything below the belt is good.
That's it, mate.
What are you donning here, Mr. Elvy?
Oh, mate, I've gone the same way. I mean, for anyone who must have been sleeping under a rock, but the Wallabies had a magnificent victory against the to and froms at Twickenham. Believe it or not, it's the first time we've won at Twickenham since the Rugby World Cup in 2015 when we beat England in the quarterfinal or the semi-final. I think it was the quarterfinal. So so yeah, and it was a great game. So good atmosphere at the pub, and it was what rugby is all about. So we do the podcast partner shout out.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll start us off because I actually just got back from seeing. I was lucky enough. My wife went to see Joel, and I went to see a guy called Sam.
Yep.
Over at Trinzy, we were getting some work done, and it's quite spectacular. Mate. In our first event, we both walked out and went, "Wow, they're incredible human beings." So, Joel and the gang over at Trinzy obviously helping us out, but they incredible people. So now even more advocate for people to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And then our other partners, obviously, we've got Ron LeBlanc.
RJ Photography.
Yep. And Erwin and the team over at Joker Jerseys. And then our beloved
Kidsport.
Charity of choice, Kidsport. Yeah. We'll jump into around the grounds.
Let's hit it.
Pretty excited. So, I mean, a couple of big crackers. So, Ireland, New Zealand on Friday. And the Kiwis walked away with a win there, 23-13. But my, oh my, Damien McKenzie. God, that kid is unreal.
Yeah, there's some solid players across the park there, mate. And congratulations to the All Blacks. They thoroughly deserve that win, considering that it was a short week for them. It was a short turnaround.
Yeah, 16 turnaround, yep.
And a lot of money was on the luck of the Irish. So well done. It was a big win for them.
That was a world number 1 versus number 3 clash.
Yeah.
And in losing that game, and in the Scotland-South Africa game where South Africa took it 32-15, that changed the world rankings. So you've now got South Africa in 1, New Zealand in 2, and Ireland in 3. So it just shows you one game can make a difference.
It sure does, mate. Well, I mean, you've only got to look at the Welsh team, right? One game makes a massive difference because they're now out of the top 10. I think they're 11th, maybe even 12th now.
They dropped down. Same with your win though against the English. Your Australia 42, England 37. That put England down in the world rankings.
Yes,
and it put the Wallabies up in the world rankings.
Yeah, it sure did. And Fiji, obviously congratulations to them. That was a massive bounce back because your boys towed them up last week. But I know that the Fijians, they got a lot of their European-based players back for the game against Wales. And they had an historic win there in Cardiff. Yeah. So well done. I suppose looking a little bit closer to home, unfortunately, the Canadians fell short of Chile. It was a really tight game. I did actually watch a lot of the game, Vinny, and it was a very tight game for a majority. But again, just
Second half,
unfortunately, some silly errors and mistakes, and Chile just. They hopped away with it, unfortunately, and I think it was 44-17 in the end. But anyway, there's room to work, room to move there, and hopefully there's a better showing coming up this weekend.
Yeah, final score 44-14 in that sense, and then the other kind of one in that kind of tally is Romania-Tonga, where Romania took the win 25-15. So, that's going to be a tough game for Canada next week when they play Romania. And, obviously Rugby Canada released this week that the viewing rights for the game against Chile were becoming quite a challenge. So, and then they're working on this Romania game coming up. So hopefully they can get the TV rights. We can get it on to, TSN, or you can get it on to DAZN or one of those kind of platforms, so we can support the boys. Or, at least try and watch a little bit of rugby so we know what's coming up.
Yeah, that's right. Now, we'll get into some more international stuff and what's coming up this weekend later in the podcast, but also some very good friends of yours and ours from the Canadian Classics played in the Cup final against South Africa on the weekend, mate. And I know that it would have been a game played in wonderful spirits, but I know the South Africans got the wood over us, and the Classics went down in a great show.
Yeah, so the World Classics, I mean, literally Canada for the first time made it to the final of the World Classic Championships, and they played against South Africa. South Africa took the gold. Canada walked away with the silver, which is unbelievable. And hats off to the guys. Paul and Larry, they're representing the Prairies. Even like Chappie, who organises it, he's also a Prairie boy. And what an incredible achievement, getting to the final experience, you name it. And
that's
know what, hats off to them. They won. They beat Ireland Classics and they beat Argentina Classics to get to the final. So I mean, those are we're not talking about slouch countries. Those are those are two strong competitors that they managed to get past to make it to the final. And then I think just one step too far, unfortunately, in that final. But super excited for the boys, and hopefully the after the final, although it wasn't, the result didn't go in their way, hopefully they recognise that having that's a hell of an achievement, and a few beers with the other boys is well deserved.
Well, I think we all know that it's not about who wins and loses with those tournaments. It's just the fact that they're aging humans and they're able to run around and represent the country, and that's what it's all about. So, congratulations to everyone that was able to attend. I'm sure it was another incredible event. A lot more beer flowing that you'd see at the Autumn Nations Cup, but good showing. And looking forward to having the boys on in a couple of weeks. That will be our final episode for the season towards the end of November. So a great way to finish off.
Yeah, super excited getting those local guys in. Talk us through how that tournament went.
What's left, mate? I think are we already at the local legend segment?
We are at the local legend segment, and oh boy, do we have a local legend.
We sure do, mate.
We sure do. So we did record a local legend a little early this week, so we went into a precursor to the result of the weekend there. But super excited, super optimistic, and you know what? We are very, very happy to introduce Ben LeSage.
Yeah.
Well, what a guest we have today. Ben LeSage, all the way from Romania, out there representing Canada at the moment. Ben, how are you today, sir?
Doing great, Vinnie. Thanks for having me. Love the pronunciation. A lot of people butcher it the first or second times around, so you nailed the French pronunciation there, so appreciate that.
Got it. All the way from Scotland. I got the pronunciation of a French. I'm taking it.
Mate, we carry out very, very important research in the Rugby ABC podcast, mate. This isn't just a fly-by-night tour.
I am almost convinced, Ben, that I've got that wrong. at least a few times in the younger years of knowing you and had someone correct me, because my accent is, it sometimes butchers people's names. So I'm glad I got it right.
Well, I don't take offense to it, but I'm sure my grandfather would. So he'll be appreciative of it. So there you go.
How
That's it.
is the trip so far out in Romania? And give us a little bit of insight into what that looks like for you away from the MLR.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like it's always exciting to get to represent your country. And I think the first week leading into a tour, there's always a lot of optimism and excitement and wanting to sort of start things off on the right foot. And the good thing for us this year as well is it's not been as long since we were with each other. The past few years, sort of test matches have been a little bit more few and far between, and we'll get together for a couple of weeks in July, and then we might not see each other again till November. And there's a lot of sort of going backwards and back to the basics, and you don't feel like you're sort of continuously taking steps forward. Whereas this year with the new Pacific Nations Cup tournament that we competed in August and September, it's really only been 5 or 6 weeks since we were all together. So there's a lot of familiar faces. It feels like we were just apart for a couple of weeks and back on tour again. So that's boded well, just in the sense of being able to layer new additions and wrinkles on top of what we already had, rather than having to start from zero all over the place. So it's always fun to be back in Europe for November tour. The air is a little bit crisper again. It's proper rugby weather. So excited to get into the next couple of weeks.
No, that's awesome. And sorry, you go on, Vinny.
Please, I interrupted you, Jay. So on you go.
No, that's all right, mate. I know that Vinny and we were talking off air, Ben. But where are you? What are you up to? I know that we know that you're in Romania, but let the viewers and the listeners know what's going on.
Yeah, so we're in Bucharest for our November autumn series, I guess, test matches. So this upcoming weekend we play Chile, who's also in town. There's sort of 4 teams in town, all in Bucharest at the moment competing. Tonga and Romania are the other 2. So this weekend it's Romania against Tonga, and we play Chile, and then the following weekend it's another week in Bucharest, and then we'll play Romania home the following weekend. So it's cool. For me, it's actually a pretty cool feeling, just because it's actually sort of coming full circle. I did a U18 tour here sort of many years ago, 11 years ago now, which was my first time ever wearing any sort of Canadian jersey, which felt like a big step. And then in 2016, Bucharest is actually where I got my first cap, my senior cap for Canada.
Cool.
Haven't been back since. So it's been cool personally as well, just to be back in the city. And a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same. So went from being one of the very young guys on the team to all of a sudden being one of the slightly older guys on the squad. So wearing a different hat, but same excitement and same goal, which is a win on the weekend. So
yeah, fantastic. So you were being given the fines, and now you're giving out the fines.
little less anxiety on tour these days, I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you would be one of you're one of the veterans now, effectively, Ben, right? Are you in that kind of leadership group within the Canadian ranks there, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah. No, I am fortunate to be in sort of the leadership group, and sort of been acting as a co-captain to the team with Lucas Rumble for a couple of years now. After 2019 World Cup, obviously, sort of there's natural turnover every year with the World Cup, but especially with COVID on the other side of things, which extended sort of the absence from rugby for a few guys. So that was really a big inflection point for Rugby Canada and our team and program specifically, where we saw a lot of the more senior guys sort of move on from rugby, and a ton of new younger guys sort of take their place, and the team makeup is still sort of in that sense. So you got a few older guys like Lucas Rumble, obviously has been playing almost every game since he first debuted, and you got DJ's out injured this tour, unfortunately, but he's on track probably to be the most capped Canadian male ever. So you still got a few experienced old guard players, but for sure there's a lot of fresh faces in the team, but they also bring a lot of energy. So it's nice to have that mix as well. I've got somewhere in the upper 30s. So sometimes I lose track of it. So, but DJ's on. I think Aaron Carpenter is currently the most capped male,
Yeah, he
and
is.
he'd be about 81 if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And DJ, I mean, DJ would have turned 30 this year and on 70. So if he wants to,
Wow.
he could definitely crack
Yeah.
that number if he keeps playing. And obviously he's still playing well and enjoying his rugby. So I hope he
Yeah.
does.
Just coming in his prime, eh? Just coming in his prime as a
For
prop.
exactly
30
for
plus.
front rower, he's probably just about to enter his golden years. So
That's it.
so we got
That's what we
best to
like
look
to hear.
forward to. Yeah.
And
So-
what's the feel in the camp like, Ben? I know that the last few years have been a bit of a roller coaster for you boys, but how's the feeling in camp at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple different feelings going on. I think that the first is disappointment based on the PNC results. You know, I thought we actually had a decent July. Vinnie would have been pleased with the score line against Scotland there. Like I don't know if the scoreboard did us justice. I thought we played better than the scoreboard suggested maybe, and did all right based on 1 week preparation and a long time apart. And then we were sort of able to build off of that and beat a good Romanian team at home, and sort of felt good about the 2 weeks together, and probably took a step backwards in the PNC. Our defense wasn't good enough. We were a little bit sloppy, and just like the one thing we talk about a lot now is sort of efficiency. When you look at, we actually had really good set piece in the PNC. We actually had decent tackle percentage, this or that, but we were the worst conversion percentage in terms of like 22-meter zone entries into points, and we were the easiest team to score against when teams entered our 22. So those have been like the big focus points coming out of that tournament going into November, is like, can we become more efficient and score when we get up against the opposition's line, and can we do a bit better job of keeping them out when we're under the pump a little bit. So I think didn't feel like the PNC went as well as we would have hoped for. So I think we want to sort of make amends for that a little bit. But at the same time, optimism, a couple of new faces in the group, a couple guys will get opportunities this weekend for the first time as well, I believe.
Awesome.
And know that we've got sort of two similarly ranked teams to go up against in Chile and Romania, and have the opportunity to end the year on a good note. So
that's exciting.
I know Vinny loves these stats, so I'm going to pass across to him now. I can see him getting excited.
Well, you touched on something really exciting in the sense that, you know, it's obviously you played in the PNC, or you played in that kind of August, September window. Now you're playing in November again. Like, there's been years being passed where, you know, Canada will go, and you nailed it, there'll be months in between camps.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really exciting that you know, as a growing nation or building again, because you know, obviously lots of youth coming through, that you're getting the opportunity to play more games together, because that's how you develop. And I'm sure Kingsley's loving that opportunity to, you know, work with you guys a little more and get a few extra games under the belt. And, you know, I'm sure the overall plan here is to continue to grow and incline as we progress through to 2025 and on.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. That's exactly it. It's like, I think the benefits are twofold. One is it benefits the team, and like I said, like from an X's and O's perspective, you can start a bit further along when you have that more time together, and layer in more and more detail the longer you're together. And I think we're starting to see finally in November sort of the benefit of that after sort of a full 6 months together. The other piece as well is just, I mean, when you think about guys and trying to occupy their off season, MLR has been amazing in that it gives you an opportunity to play rugby full time for 6 or 7 months. But if there's not enough Canadian rugby over that off season, now guys are struggling to make ends meet potentially, and have to decide between rugby or work, and aren't sort of in a full-time rugby environment in that off season either. So by having the additional tournament and test matches, all of a sudden it becomes pretty viable to be playing full-time rugby competitively 12 months a year. So individually it's beneficial as well. And you're seeing a lot of guys sort of playing some of the best rugby of their careers as a result. So
Now,
how
Ben,
does the body hold up to 12 months of rugby?
Yeah.
Like 12
Same
months
page,
back
Vinny.
to back. Obviously, you get some rest periods in there, but you obviously you were doing some maintenance work before our call today. But how's the body feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's holding on. Like again, like I think it's a good problem to have, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
going to say I'm the freshest I've ever been, and I'm as fresh as I was going into preseason last year. I think knock on wood, like I've been relatively lucky this year. It's been bumps and bruises, nothing major. And I think the same goes for a lot of guys. So, I mean, it's not like it's unusual. I think you look around the world, the best players in the world are mostly playing in club competitions that go 9 or 10 months in the Northern Hemisphere, and then sprinkle in a bunch of of test matches on top of that. So it's like
Mm.
if we want to be competitive with some of the best teams and players in the world, that's sort of the regimen we have to be following ourselves, right? And so I think
Sounds good.
it's probably not uncommon for a player in the six to play 25 to 30 plus high level in a year. And I think there's a number of us on track who had long MLR seasons who will probably play sort of 25 plus ourselves. So I think it's finally, we say we want to be full-time rugby players and we say we want to challenge ourselves against, it's finally like, hey, here's your opportunity to do so and prove it. And maybe 1 year the body doesn't hold up as well, but it's good learnings about what works, what doesn't work. Our S&Cs are really, really great in terms of blending the club season into the test season, and trying to make sure that everyone's sort of conditioned and built out for those long seasons. So
A lot of people may not know, but you just mentioned earlier back-to-back MLR champions, and you're with the New England Free Jacks. So tell us, first of all, how did you get involved in the MLR so that other athletes might understand the pathway, and tell us what it's like playing for the Free Jacks.
yeah, yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's been a pretty awesome 2 seasons with the Free Jacks. Obviously, couldn't have gone any better, I guess, when
Yeah.
you evaluate based on outcome. But for me, first MLR season would have been 2020. Yeah, with the Toronto Arrows. Um,
Yep.
so rewinding all the way, I think the MLR maybe the first year that it was in place with 6 or 7 teams would have been 2018.
Mm.
So you rewind all the way back to when I first started university in 2013. There was no real professional rugby opportunities in North America. So if I'm being honest, I went to UBC with the intention of getting a degree and going into the workforce, and rugby was just something I was going to do for fun while I was at university to stay
Mm.
fit and make some friends. And it was pretty cool for me that from between arriving at university to exiting university, all of a sudden there was this competition that I could conceivably put my hand up for and try
Yeah.
and qualify in. So I put off going to the MLR until I graduated university. I was kind of just like, let's get my schooling done pre World Cup. That was the big goal for me. Just get university out of the way so I could focus on rugby full time rather than drag on with online courses and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
hopefully get it done without any sort of commitment.
Yeah.
So I got the rugby done, was fortunate enough to get selected, go to the 2019 World Cup, and then from there ended up signing with the Arrows and spent a couple seasons with them. Actually spent a season in LA with the Giltinis before they folded, and then the past 2 seasons with the Free Jack. So it's been a
Oh,
bit of a
nice.
whirlwind, but honestly pretty amazing. Like gotten to live in a few different parts of North America, uh, get to play rugby full time for a living, which is the dream, right? Do it
Yeah.
while we're capable. Um, and the league is amazing, but obviously that it can be a bit of the Wild West sometimes, and there's
Yeah.
teams coming, there's teams going, there's a bit of instability that comes with the course. But again, it's kind of what you sign up for when you're trying to compete in an emerging sport in a new country and those sorts of things. So you just kind of got to ride the waves as they come. So yeah, it's been awesome, and I think pretty exciting. I'm sure for younger Canadians, Americans as well, to now have this competition that you
Mm.
could aspire to join, and the pathway for Canadians and Americans as well, just based on them prioritizing domestic players to crack than some of the other overseas options, which seem a lot more um, far fetched, I guess, for lack of a better word.
It's a hell of a career. So you obviously you were at you were at the Arrows, the Giltinis. So you had Coleman as a coach there down at the Giltinis, and they had
Did you have
some.
DC? Were you there when DC was there?
Oh, I actually missed him for a year. So he was
Ah,
there their first year. But obviously he had the Saints connection. So I crossed paths with him for a week and we talked about the Saints and he actually had a few buddies from the Saints that came and visited him in LA or whatever. So there were some
yeah,
Albie
Saints
and
fans
stuff like
down in LA.
that.
Exactly, LB. And
Albie and Dave Lee
so then he
and
moved on. That's when he won the league with the Giltinis, got hired by
yeah,
the Taws.
so obviously
yeah.
Yeah.
you went to the Giltinis. Did you get the luxury? Obviously, there's some hallmark players that have played at the Giltinis, and then obviously even at the New England Free Jacks.
Mm.
Any hallmark players that you would say you've learned a lot from in your time in the MLR?
Yeah, well, I mean, the three that stand out, like Giltini's was obviously the big Aussie names. So Jason, you'll probably recognize
Yeah,
be fanboy over a few of them, obviously. But like teammates with Dave Dennis was our captain,
yeah,
um, and like to this date, best captain I've ever played for. Just like an incredible human being, found an amazing way to um, just address the team, keep everyone motivated on a week-to-week basis, never get too highs after wins, never get too lows after losses. Just like a very stoic figure that brought a lot of perspective and was easy to get up for.
mm.
And even he was going on to his later, I think he was maybe 35, 36 while he was playing with us, 4 kids, like didn't need to be playing rugby if he didn't wanted to, but just absolutely loved the game and was putting his body on the line every week, right? So easy guy to want to play for. Um,
Yeah,
and then sort of like in a similar vein, didn't actually get to play with him that year because he was hurt the whole season. He was doing his rehab, but Matt Giddo was a
yeah. He
teammate.
was. Yeah,
Um, and just, I mean, one of the most intense competitors I've come across, even in the weight room when he wasn't able to train on a rugby field, just like his dry sense of humor, pushing guys to be the best versions of themselves was like pretty awesome to see. And then
mm.
sort of his counterpart, who was backs coach for the year while I played, was Adam Ashley Cooper. So
That's right.
um, complete
Yeah,
opposite to Gitz, but brought a humor and it was easy to get along with and knew his X's and O's just as well. So the two of them were almost the yin and yang and worked really well between them. So it was an amazing year for me, both like off the field, getting to live in LA and all those sorts of things, but rugby wise as well. Learned a lot from the crew that was all there, and sort of had to pinch yourself sometimes just realizing sort of who you were in a room with.
yeah. Well,
It's exciting.
Gits and Adam Ashley Cooper are fellow podcasters, as you may know as well, with the
Yeah,
Coco Show back in Australia. So,
of course.
yeah,
Yeah,
shout out to the boys.
yeah. No, at the Free Jacks, like it's quite interesting because they pride themselves on like Scott Matthew was our head coach, and I think the culture sort of started with him and sort of emanated through the whole organization, and he's a South African coach who sort of cut his teeth in Curry Cup rugby and probably even himself. I think he was maybe well regarded as a coach in South Africa, but not sort of some big name signing that anyone
Yeah,
would have given a lot of credence to as he came over to MLR. And he wanted to sign a lot of players that sort of fit the same bill, like um, really tough, physical, fit rugby players who had chips on their shoulders and had something to prove. Maybe not necessarily bigger names and flashy signings and those sorts of things. And he really built a culture and a mantra around that and leaned into us being a scrappy bunch of no-win names that no one expected much from, and who were going to outperform everyone else on the field. And it truly became that. And so as a coach, he was incredible. His background actually after playing professionally was like an English school teacher, and I think he did a stint just teaching English before he got back into rugby on the coaching side. And
mm.
so like he was pretty drilled from an X's and O's perspective and strategically and game plan, those sorts of things. It was like I talked about Dave Dennis, but similarly like Scott's storytelling and his ability to pick the right theme every week to motivate guys and um, just get everyone to play on the weekend. Like his team talk
Yeah.
before you went to the field, you had no idea what kind of story he was going to pull out. But in hindsight, it usually ended up being the right one.
Take us back to where it all began, mate. Back at the mighty Canucks, I think you mentioned. So, how did you get involved in rugby? And give us the story from young Ben.
Yeah, I'm like, it's crazy to think how long ago it started now. It feels like such a long time ago. But for me, rugby sort of ran in the family, and I think that's unusual for sort of Canadians born and bred.
Yeah.
And so my grandpa, I sort of alluded to him earlier. He actually had no idea what rugby was, but was a high school teacher in Ontario, and met an Aussie, a fellow teacher at his school was an Aussie, introduced him to rugby, and they founded sort of a rugby team at the school, and then ended up being a
Oh,
founding
cool.
member of Barrie Rugby Club in Ontario. So
That's
my
awesome.
grandpa played some rugby and was sort of involved in sort of grassroots rugby in Ontario. And so as a result, he got my dad and my uncle involved probably relatively early. And my dad played all the way sort of like through Ontario, went to school in England for university, and played over there, lived in Belgium for a stint, played in Belgium. And then when he came to work back in Calgary and even in medicine, was just playing his whole career. And so continued playing
Wow.
with the Saints in Calgary. I remember growing up, like going up with my mom and my sister to watch my dad play. He was the one playing into his 40s, like just couldn't stop playing. Always wanted to play, and so he got me playing as early as I could. So it was probably U8s, U10s, flag rugby, running around. Not a
Yeah.
ton of people playing in Calgary at that age, but those of us that were sort of just touching a rugby ball, throwing it around, and going from there. So he's been a big influence on my rugby career, and sort of coached me all the way up through age grade, involved in the Canucks teams. So I played Canucks U12, U14, started getting involved in the Alberta age grade stuff. My high school, actually, EP Scarlet in Calgary, didn't have a rugby
Yeah.
team, so I had to go to Henry Wisewood to play rugby, and sort of traveled after school to go play rugby in high school there, and sort of just played as much rugby as I could all the way up through age grades. And like I said, I think sort of coming out of Alberta U18, I wasn't a highly regarded prospect. I don't think if you asked anyone, there was many big ambitions for my rugby career.
Yeah.
And so I chose UBC because they had rugby, but primarily because it was a good academic school. And I just emailed the rugby coach when I showed up and said, "Hey, can I show up to practice? When's practice?" And it kind of took off from there. So so a lot of fond memories playing at the CRU, games
Yeah.
getting rained out, sitting in the car when there's lightning,
Yeah.
delaying games, the short rugby season, trying to fit everything into sort of a 2 or 3 month stretch over the summer there.
Yeah.
So yeah, been pretty cool to look back and think back on.
No, it's really exciting, and for someone that's been away and representing country and obviously yourself down in MLR for such a long time, to have that vivid memory is massive. Question for you. Obviously, growing through, you played U18 Canada. You played Wolfpack as well.
I did.
Let's touch a
And
little.
Wolfpack was awesome. So I was just thinking that too. I was talking about the CRU and the memories there, and like you talk about how much it's grown. I remember even like CRU 3 when I was growing up. That was so far, like having to go to a third field all the way at the far end. Now how many fields they've got and the new parking lot and stuff. It's amazing how big it's grown. But I mean, with Wolfpack, it was like the commitment in Alberta. Thinking back to drive to Red Deer like 2 or 3 times a week for practice. Like I don't
Yeah.
think many other parts of the country can appreciate sort of the commute and the commitment to having to do that. But again, I think Wolfpack's probably where my rugby sort of took off, or at least started accelerating a little bit, getting to play with, I mean, personally in the centers, influences like Mozak and Nick Blevins and those
Yeah.
sort of guys in the back line to learn off of.
Yeah. Was
And
Gordy there
Graham,
as well, mate?
Gordy, of course, Gordy
Yeah.
there, and like Moff as a coach as well. Just like
Yeah.
so much rugby knowledge and talent for me to learn off of. It was just like a great environment to challenge myself in and learn from, and get kind of thrown in the deep end with some amazing rugby players, and try and get up to speed pretty quickly.
Hey, Vinny, is
Yes,
it
sir.
time? or have you got one more?
No, I think it's time. Let's go into the type five. I think.
All right. Well,
you want
off you
to
go.
start us off?
Sure. Growing up, who was your idol, or who's your favourite player?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think like the ones that come to mind probably as a family, we cheered for the All Blacks. Like I think as anyone does, like you sort of just cheer for the best team in the world or appreciate some of the greatness going on at the time. So like for me, someone who I idolized and maybe tried to model my game off of a little bit would have been someone like Conrad Smith.
Yes.
So he was incredible. Like I think loved watching Sonny Bill play, loved watching Nanu play. I've gotten to play against Nanu a few times actually in the MLR, which is pretty cool. It sort of pinched me, but Conrad Smith was sort of that outside center. I've played quite a bit outside in a number of years, and just the way he unlocked the game and sort of was the connection between sort of the inside backs and the outside backs and made rugby look effortless was kind of something that I loved watching and definitely someone I looked up to.
Effortless is the best terminology for this. I didn't see that one coming, Ben, but I seen it coming. If you get my drift, like that's a pretty good choice.
Yeah. Well, I learned. I think I like accepted pretty early. I was never going to be the leading the stat sheet or scoring the most tries on the team, and so it's like sort of guys like that who are sort of big glue guys or defensive guys, even in more recent times. I guess Chris Harris for Vinnie or Gary Ringrose, like really solid defensive players and stuff are guys I've looked up to as more realistic role models than maybe like a Rico Ioane or those type of guys. So
yeah, the kind of the offensive defensive kind of switch, right? And you nailed it there by I mean you're on the fence for both, Benny. You're kind of cutting yourself short there a little bit by saying you're not going to tip the charts at the stats. Like you must be up there defensively, and I've seen you score a couple of peachy tries. So I mean it's you got to be close in the sense of you're giving both attack and defense a good crack.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're going to see any World Rugby tries of the year out of me. There'll be a few grinder tries that I'm able to pick up and a few here or there. But I definitely, if anything, pride myself on defensive side of the game and anything I could pick up offensively, I'll take. So
just going to say whether it's a dirty try or a flashy try, it's 5 points, buddy. They're the same. They mean the same. A try's a try. A meat pie is all that matters.
Yeah.
All right, Vinny. What else, mate?
I'm curious. Favorite country, because you've done a fair bit of traveling.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be for rugby, Ben. It could just be in general. But favorite country you visited?
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, because it's fresh in my mind and it aligns with one of my like rugby highlights. I guess the best rugby country I've been to would be probably Japan. It was amazing. Like obviously getting to go there for the World Cup was like spectacular, heightened by the attention and everything around the World Cup. But even if you remove rugby from the equation, like they're so incredibly hospitable towards foreigners. They go out of their way to make sure that you're enjoying their country and that you found everything that you need. And the food is incredible. The history is incredible. There's beautiful mountains. There's beautiful waterside things. There's big, crazy cities. There's quiet, small towns. It's sort of like you can get anything that you want, all mixed in with sort of this incredible culture that's so foreign to what I grew up around in Canada. So I think for me, it's a country I've been lucky to go to a few times now. And both from rugby, that like all of a sudden they're such a huge rugby fans. And we played
massive.
Tonga at a neutral ground in the middle of the day, and we still had sort of 10,000 fans there, people painting their face with Canada flags, whether or not they've ever been to the country, I have no idea. But yeah, amazing country.
That's incredible. It's on the bucket list, Ben. So that kind of stuff is just going to push me to move it further up the bucket list, mate. That's awesome.
You got to get there. You got to get there.
And let's do your favorite position, mate. I know that you're a centre, but is there another position on the field that you kind of idolise or wish you may have had a crack at?
It's funny. I don't know if I've ever like contemplated that recently. I think like a funny story is I don't know if you know the Brent Goff. He was he's like quite involved with the Calgary Canucks. He was the coach at
Yeah.
Wisewood, and I remember going from what would have been maybe U14 rugby, where again there's what, 6 in a scrum, right? There's no flankers, and I
That's
was
right.
graduating. I was moving up to high school rugby, and it was going to be the first level of rugby I played ever that had flankers. And so I just thought it was the coolest thing ever that there's going to be flankers and this new novel position that I knew nothing about. So I showed up, and first day of high school rugby, I told Mr. Goff, I said, I want to play flanker this year. Like there's flankers and I want
Yeah.
to be one. And he shot that idea down from day one. He basically said, like, again, the caliber of some high school rugby, I was one of the only guys who'd been playing rugby for more than probably 2 or 3 months. So he said, you're going to play
Yeah.
fly half, as one of the only guys who can sort of throw a spin pass more than 5 meters on a consistent basis. So he sort of killed my dreams early on of being a flanker, and put me at 10, and sort of slowly as I grew and whatever moved from 10 into the centers. But I thank him to this day, because sort of some days when the backs are working on their kicking and you look over at the forwards doing their maul and scrum practice, I'm ever thankful that I wound up as a back and didn't migrate into the forward pack. So
Do
I
you hear
love
that,
that. I
Vinny?
love that
The backs
transparent
are looking
honesty.
over at the forwards all the time. They're always
Yeah.
looking at us.
Hey, you know what? I was fixing my hair at one point after a scrum. That's all right. I love it. I love the. I love the. Well, to be fair, the forwards sometimes look over at the backs and go, "What is it they're actually doing?" And then realize very quickly that it's just a skill set that we couldn't do, in the
Yeah.
sense of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that too, Ben, because I'm coaching the U16s at the moment, and I've got boys in the front row that keep coming up to me saying, "Coach, can I play in the backs? Let me play in the backs." And then I've got the boys in the backs going, "Can I play flanker? I want to play flanker." So it's funny how the kids just want to give everything a crack.
there you go.
question. I mean, you kind of talked a little bit about Japan being your favorite country, but obviously, what's your favorite moment, or your favorite achievement in rugby, or just in life in general? It doesn't have to be rugby.
That's a good question. I like it would probably be rugby related. I'm trying to think of the
Yeah.
non rugby related ones in my life. Revolves so much around rugby at the moment that the ones that come to mind are rugby related. I do think. I mean, it's probably the most obvious one, but probably winning the first Shield with the Free Jacks was pretty special. I think you mentioned earlier it's been a tough few years for our men's 15s program in Canada, and we've gone through some lows, and I can tell you easily, like, the lowest point of my career, and potentially I've been fortunate enough not to have any like huge hardships in life, and so one of the lowest points was when we missed out for qualification for 2023, and lost to Chile in Chile. um, and so having gone through sort of a tough few years of turnover and not a ton of rugby post COVID, and sort of feeling like rugby was sort of heading in the wrong direction, to um, getting to go to the Free Jacks and be a part of sort of a scrappy team that was underdogs, and um, weren't favorites at the beginning of the year to win the title, and weren't favorites even going into the final to win the title, to sort of pull it out in dramatic fashion, was just an incredible feeling, and it felt like the
Yeah.
storybook Cinderella story that had played out, and to feel like you finally accomplished something rugby wise, and just the euphoria of getting the job done and getting really close with the teammates and those sorts of things, like, was an incredible year. And obviously, and it would have been awesome regardless, but to cap it off on that moment was pretty special. And I think not just for me, but some of the other Canadian boys too, sort of gave us confidence again that, like, we can win rugby games and we know how to win,
Yeah.
and that is sort of building this muscle of learning how to win and trying to bring that back into this environment. So probably brought this newfound excitement and confidence of bringing some of the same success that we've had from a club perspective into this Canadian environment, and to start building something exciting that Canadians can be proud of.
It's incredible the power of the top 2 inches, eh? The mindset that you guys have got, that kind of chip on my shoulder, that bit of dog, that bit of fight. Everybody at that level is a good athlete, but not everybody at that level has the willingness to put the body on the line, or the willingness to make a decision split second that potentially has catastrophic outcomes, in the sense of your body's that's your job effectively. And it's awesome to see that mindset alone drove you guys to one championship and then another. So the power of the top 2 inches is just something that we're scratching the surface on, I think, in rugby. I think there's other sports we probably could learn a little bit from. Like, I'm not a big NFL fan, but some of the power of perception and the mind tools that they use to focus players is quite intense. And I think obviously from your experience, you can tell from the two platforms you were in, even just through the MLR, going from the Arrows to Giltinis onto the Free Jacks, that obviously the experience is different. And I'm really happy for you that you've landed in a spot that fits your personality, because you are a workhorse, and it fits. You're obviously seeing the success from that. So super excited for you, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We always
Now,
talk
mate,
about the serious question.
Yeah.
Are we
The
going to go into
serious
that one?
question.
You're
Yeah,
going to
mate.
ask a
So
serious question?
yeah, well, it's not serious. This is the fun one, because it's for someone who's obviously had a wonderful career to date. What advice would you give, or how would you encourage that new player or that new family to get involved with rugby? How would you point them in the right direction?
Yeah, like, it's something I've kind of been thinking of since you first mentioned it. But I guess maybe my advice would be Calgary or Prairies specific. Like, without having grown up, I know, like, to grow up in BC and to have sort of rugby at your fingertips year round is sort of this luxury that I didn't grow up around, right? And so, like, for me, I think what I owe a lot of my success to is the amount of rugby that I played and the amount of opportunities I said yes to.
Yeah.
And I remember there was so many summers, where you play high school season into U18 season, and then maybe there's a sevens tournament, and then there's a rep team that's visiting from the UK and they need bodies to play this week. Like, there's an infinite amount of rugby, and it's easy to sort of say no to one thing or focus on the other or not do the sevens. But I know for the most part, I said yes to as much rugby as I could. And like I alluded to, sometimes it meant driving to Red Deer one weekend, Lethbridge the other, to Regina the third weekend. But I think just playing as much as rugby as possible was the best thing I did for developing my rugby, and trying to keep up with some of those BCs and Ontarios where they've got more resources and more people playing, and it's easier to sort of stay at that high performance level. And during the off season, there's dry land training, and it feels weird to pass a rugby ball on squash courts, but it's just like whatever we could come up with was like, hey, you're doing it, you know what I mean? And I think I benefited a lot from that, especially in high school, when I started again touching a rugby ball closer to year round than over the summer. And so I guess I would encourage anyone in the Prairies, as much as it can sucker and sometimes it doesn't feel like rugby, just marginal steps towards saying yes and doing something that the more things you put your hand up for, I think the better off for it you'll be over the long run.
We've heard that
That's great
before,
advice.
Vinny, haven't we?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's still great advice.
Yeah,
I kind of want to
advice.
add a question on, Ben, if you're all right with that. I mean,
me.
whether
Yeah,
it might
let's
not
go.
be something you have an answer to, but obviously your experience in the prairies and stuff like that. Obviously, our weather our climate is quite, it's cold. Let's put it that way, in the winter, right? So
Let's cut to the chase here, mate.
cut to the chase. What skills, like, would you recommend to any young budding athlete? Like, if they have a ball at home, like just throwing the ball between hands, like kicking it to yourself, like like doing this all internally, is there any skills or any things that core skills that you would recommend for kids or adults to utilize during that time? Like obviously we talk about just throwing a rugby ball around or palming it, juggling, whatever, but anything specific from your perspective you would recommend?
I think most of my advice would probably fall in line with what you said. Like I think the fact that you're catching a rugby ball is probably like
Yeah.
a great start, so much further along than anything else, right? I think like if you wanted to get into real specifics, you talk about like firing from the hip and working on rotation of wrists and this or that. I guess one that I never worked on and I'm still struggling with is I wish I could develop like a kicking game, and like so much of it has to do, you can have the boot for it, but has to do with the drop, right? And so now like I find myself 40 times at the end of practice, whatever it is, just dropping the ball, right? Like finding your guide hand, having it fall straight up and down, starting to do that with a one step. Like that's something I'm sure I could have done while I was watching TV behind the couch or whatever it was growing up. But like you said, it's your instincts more passing and it's fun to pass. And you almost forget about the kicking and the drop. And now all of a sudden, when you get to the really high levels, like of course the fly half and the fullback and the nine are doing the biggest part of it, but you start to see where two players are the same skill level, all else is equal. If one has a kicking option, like all of a sudden you're putting them into the game now that the kicking game is such a big influence on rugby. So maybe it'd be something to do with the kick drop. I know Jinxie, John Long always, I remember him working on it with me way back when, and wish I'd stuck with it longer and more than just the sessions with them. So it's if you don't get it early, you can be battling it for a while.
Jinxie's still doing that to these days, Ben. He's an amazing asset
all those
in the prairies.
Students.
Yeah, he's
Love
teaching
that.
all of them.
Love
Yeah,
that. Here's
yeah.
that.
It's such a unique thing, right? Like a lot of people think, oh, rugby's only or sports only when I get to the field, right? But really, the hard work comes off the field. It's in your own time. You know, you're probably, you know, how if you look at a natural week, let's just say you're in MLR, you're probably spending, we'll probably inflate it, let's say 5 hours on field, if even. And then the rest of that time as a professional athlete and a full-time athlete is you've got S&C, which is probably similar, 5 hours. And then everything else is really your own maintenance or your own skill blocks or your own maintenance stuff as such. So that's a lot of time that you're working on your individual skills away from the group and away from, you know, the environment, not away from the environment, but you know, one-on-one or, you know, even just yourself, just practicing skills that you want to get better at. So even as a amateur or a non-professional athlete in the club game, you put in the time in, even if it's an hour a week or 10 minutes a day or whatever, every 10 minutes, that just exponentially increases your skill set.
Yeah.
Is my opinion, obviously, yeah. All righty.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you.
I can't say how happy I am to have you on, Ben. This is this has been awesome, mate. I know there's a lot of young aspiring athletes in the prairies here that are going to love to hear this, and you know your time is very valuable, and we really appreciate you giving it to us here at Rugby ABC. And you know, I'm really hoping that we can inspire a younger generation to, you know, effectively watch your upcoming games against, you know, Chile and Romania. And you know we're going to be budding for you for a good win here on Saturday and then the following weekend. And you know my second allegiance or one of my other allegiances in Scotland, or we'll bat for them after or before whenever that game comes on. But you know we're going to be supporting you, pal.
No, I really appreciate that, and appreciate you sort of taking some interest in my story. You know, I mean, I'm incredibly proud to be from Calgary in the prairies, and like to be sort of there's a few of us, I guess, but I guess an outlier, so to speak. I know there's not as many as prairie boys sort of up at this level as I'd like there to be. So hope I can be sort of like you said, even if it's one or two people that sort of see the light and that there's a pathway. That's super exciting to me, and hopefully whether it's post rugby when I have a bit more downtime or in the next couple of years when there's natural breaks, like I do have sort of ambitions to get back to Calgary and help out, and I know you guys are both involved at the community level, so if there's any ever like teams or players or whatever it is that you think would benefit from me being put in touch to, like you name it, and I'm here to help and would love to be more involved at that level in Calgary. So I'm here to help.
Expect a call from us.
That's
Expect
incredible.
a call. Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ben, and good luck to you and the boys this weekend, mate. It's a very early kickoff, Calgary time. I think it's a 6 a.m. kickoff for us.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I'd say 6 or
yeah.
even 5 a.m. maybe. I don't know. It's unusually early for us. Even like the difference between a 1 p.m. and a 7 p.m. kickoff, just from like a preparation perspective, is quite different. How early you start going to bed earlier in the week and your meals and all those sorts of things. So everything's definitely shifting a little earlier as we get closer to the game. So
Ben, you're a complete legend, mate. We
thanks,
really
mate.
appreciate your time, and best of luck. And tell the boys we're rooting for them at the ABC podcast here, and hopefully we'll watch and we'll go from there, pal.
will do. No, great chatting to you both.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it, mate.
Some man. See you later, Ben.
All the best
Later.
on the weekend, buddy.
Bye.
Well, Vinny, another wonderful local legend, mate. And once again, thanks, Ben, for providing his time. He's in camp, on the eve of a test match. We're blessed to be able to get these local legends on the podcast.
Yeah, one hell of a guy. Yeah, he's very humble, but what an incredible human being. Double MLR champion. Holy smokes, does he hold it well? And it just he's your basic grassroots Calgary boy.
He's a Calgary Canucks boy.
Calgary through and through. So I mean, hats off to him. Obviously, the challenges, going to university, finishing university, prioritizing university over going to the MLR earlier.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people make those decisions, and
sensible
hats
choices.
off to him.
Yep.
Yeah. Good choice. He's got a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, and just we talk about it a lot, Vinny, but again, we say that we're incredibly lucky to have these wonderful humans who have achieved so much, or are at the top of the world in regards to their rugby careers. But the wonderful thing is that when we do speak to all of these local legends, they can't wait to get involved and give back, and that's what rugby's all about. That's 9/10 of the reason that we've got the Rugby ABC podcast up and running, mate, is because it's incredible. Unlike other sports where you feel as though some people are untouchable and they're on a completely different stratosphere. It doesn't matter how successful you are in rugby and what position you're at. Everyone makes time to give back at that community level, and that's what makes this sport so freaking special.
Well, he even said it himself, right? Like literally, anytime he's in Calgary, he's looking to give back because it just takes.
And we're holding him to that.
100%. I mean, and he's a great lad. That will happen. There's other people that kick around our community that we, hopefully we'll get to talk to. I'll use a prime example. Ben is, he's an incredible athlete and an incredible human being. But you've got guys like, James O'Neill's and the Hubert Bidens and the, all these guys that have played for Canada. That any chance they get, they're giving back to the community. They're giving back to grassroots. They're involved. They're sharing their wisdom. And that's good people, and that's what we need. That's
exactly right.
People. Yeah.
Too true.
Yeah.
All right, mate. What's coming up this weekend? Another big weekend of international rugby. But before we get on to the international stuff, we've got the playoffs of the Canadian Men's University Rugby Championships being held in Ottawa.
Yeah, we sure do, man. We sure do. So they just released they released it 2 days ago, or just at the end of last week, the rankings, so 1 through 8, and then they released the quarter-final games. So the games that are happening on Wednesday, November 13th, all of which will be televised through, and you can check out where to visit that just on the CUMRC website. It's like Rugby Pass usually, but something to just confirm on there. But I'll just run through the 4 quarterfinals. So you've got ETS, the Piranhas versus the Memorial Seahawks. in quarter-final 1 at 10:30. And then you've got UBCO, who is the Prairie representative team this year,
that's
playing
right.
against UBC at 1 o'clock.
Mm.
So a bit of a UBCO rivalry there.
Yeah.
And then you've got Queens versus the University of Victoria Vikes.
Yep.
And you've got the hosts, the Ottawa GGs, versus the Guelph Griffins.
The Ottawa GGs. I love that name.
Yeah, Ottawa GGs. And one of the claims here, there's lots of kids that are playing. Obviously, we've had Chris and Alex Gamage come on for the Vikes, but also a name that another local legend playing for Guelph is Heath Barnett Rickey. He just moved out there. He transferred from Mount Royal out to Guelph, and he's been playing with them all season. So I wish them the best of luck. And then obviously anybody else that we might be missing by namesake, but obviously go hard and have some fun. And
Vinny, we've got some exciting news as well. We, as in the Rugby ABC podcast, we are the very proud sponsors of the 2024 Rookie of the Year for the University Championship. So I know that they're down to the final the 6 nominations. So good luck to all of those young men. And we're stoked to be on board and be supporting the rugby community.
100%, and you know what? That's part of our mantra, is to be involved and develop grassroots, and that's a big, those rookies and the young kids coming through in this level of sport are just incredible at this moment in time.
That's right. Yeah. All right, so lots of exciting university rugby still to come across the week in front of us. And then flowing into another massive weekend of international rugby in the Northern Hemisphere, mate.
Sure do. Super excited. I'll run through a couple because they're all big ones.
Yeah.
So you've got Ireland, Argentina on Friday this week. We've got Scotland, Portugal, England, South Africa. That's a big one.
Could that be 3 from 3 losses at home, maybe?
It could be 3 from 3 losses for England at home, or it could be an England upset of the world champions.
Well, let's hope so, mate, because that'll keep things nice and spicy. And I'm saying that because my beloved Wallabies, we had a win on the weekend, so it doesn't really matter what happens from here on in.
The other big one this weekend is flourishing for rugby. France, New Zealand.
That'll be a big one. Yep.
Yeah, that's a massive game. And then on Sunday, we have Italy, Georgia, and your beloved Australia versus Wales.
And Australia versus Wales. Even though Wales just got beaten by Fiji on the weekend, the Welsh team is the Welsh Australian games. There's always just a couple of points in it, just like when France play New Zealand. It doesn't matter where the nations are sitting at that time. Those games are always incredible and come down to the wire. Yeah,
100%. The Wales team just have the ability to stay in a scrap for a long time, and you know what? That's usually what a game of rugby ends up being a little bit when it's a close one. So, Wales obviously losing at home as well. They're still rebuilding. They're a very young team. So it'll be really exciting to see, obviously get through the autumn internationals, get some experience, blood some young players, and then, by the time we get to the Six Nations next year, that's a totally different concept.
Yeah, that's exactly right, mate. And I know that we've gone over some of the big games, but for anyone out there watching or listening in, if you want to know what's coming up this weekend, there's a stack of international rugby. Jump onto worldrugby.com. They've got all the fixtures and all the results in there and all the information of how you can watch the games.
Got it.
But
only one to add to that, Jace, is Canada,
the Canadian
Romania.
Game. There you go.
Yeah, that's on Saturday as well. Canada, Romania, and then USA, Tonga. Those would be the 2 notable ones in there. But yeah, lots of rugby this weekend. One thing I did find this weekend, if you use DAZN or DAZN, however you pronounce it. They had the autumn internationals on there So if you have that account, you can watch them all on there. Otherwise, there are a few establishments kicking around in Calgary. So the CRU are hosting some of these games. And,
Calgary Rugby's hosting all the games, yep.
Yeah, and then obviously we were down at James Joyce on 4th Street.
Just the Joyce on 4th, yep. And then Limericks. I know
Limericks
that they've usually got the games on, but if you do happen to miss them, a majority of the games you can actually find them the day after on YouTube. You can find full replays or highlights. So so you can always get around it and catch some of the updates or watch the games.
That's it. It's just watching rugby, right? Well, that's how we develop skills and understanding. And some of the new law changes they've brought in for the autumn internationals are incredible so far. I mean, I'll use a prime example. Scotland played South Africa at the weekend, and there was a red card, a yellow card that was upgraded to a red card. That was a 20-minute red card, which allowed for a replacement to come on at 20 minutes.
That's right.
Which allowed the game to still be a competitive game. Now, was it a red card? That's a different question. But it's kind of interesting to see that. Same with contestable kicks. You're now no longer able to block an oncoming player. If someone's competing for the ball, you have to allow them access. That is showing us some, we're seeing some unbelievable aerial skills right now in some of these young wingers and fullbacks that are just getting insane height off the ground trying to catch some of these balls. So incredible skill sets. But
that's right.
Yeah, that's
lots of rugby to sink your teeth into. Make sure you follow your favourite university team that's made the final 6 or the final 8, and then watch some of that international stuff. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it next episode, mate. But that almost brings us to a close of episode 10. But let's have one last shout out to our podcast partners, mate. Let's rip through them again.
Yeah, so I'll start off with Erwin at Joker Jerseys and Ron LeBlanc at RJ Photography. I'll get that name right eventually.
We will, mate. And then, of course, our charity of choice, Kids Sport, Kevin Webster and the gang over there, they're incredible. And, of course, where you've been this afternoon, getting a bit of a tune-up, mate, the wonderful team at Intrinsi YYC, located in the Marda Loop, in the beautiful southwest of Calgary there. Get along and get yourself tuned up. And then
young Sam managed to get me into a position where I'm no longer walking in circles, Mr. Elvy. So
there you go.
He's done a grand job so far. Miracle worker. It was like I blew out my candles and a wish came true.
There you go. All right, and don't forget, if you can't watch us on YouTube, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all the podcast channels. We've got our website, rugbyabc.com. Please subscribe, like, follow, share it with your family, share it with your friends. And we've only got 2 more episodes before we finish season 1, mate. And we've got a couple of fantastic local legends coming up. So make sure you tune in and share the love of rugby. Lovely.
That's exactly. We're getting excited, eh, Jace?
That's it, mate.
Season 1 in the books, and we're almost there.
There you go.
All right. Thanks for joining, guys. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Over and out. All right. Good one.
That works. All right, pal. You go and get your kit and caboodle on and go smooth some people and enjoy the hockey.